we see that the government of Iran, the supreme leader, the president, the parliament, is being supplanted, and that Iran is moving toward a military dictatorship.
That was Secretary of State Hilary Rodham Clinton warning an audience in Qatar this week that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is taking over the government of Iran, a charge that the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, calls a lie. But my guest this week says there is reason for Khamenei to be worried. Amir Taheri is an Iranian-born journalist and author of the book, The Persian Night, Iran Under the Khomeinist Revolution. Amir Taheri, good to have you back on the program. So you wrote for us that Iran was moving towards a military dictatorship even before the Secretary of State said it. Who is running Iran now?
Well, in reality, it is the Revolutionary Guards, because they have 9 out of 22 ministerial posts. They have half of the governorships of the country, many ambassadorial posts. And of course, they appear on television almost every night. You see one of the generals setting the tune. And there was the anniversary of the revolution on February 11th, which the Revolutionary Guard for the first time took over and ran like a military operation with a code name. And all Iranians saw that it was the military running the show at the moment.
Well, we've been trained to, at least I've been raised to think of Iran as a theocracy with religious belief at the center of its governance. Is that no longer true? And what does that mean for how the regime is going to behave?
The Khomeinist regime is a fascist regime which used religion as its main theme, as Hitler's regime was a fascist regime using nationalism and racism. Mussolini's regime was a fascist regime using historical memories of Italians. So the nature of the regime has not changed. The ruling group has changed, because the clerics who were dominant in the system now find out that the majority of Shiite clergy do not support them any longer.
So what does that mean for the ability of the regime to maintain power, first of all, inside Iran? Does it make it stronger or weaker?
Well, it makes it tactically stronger and strategically weaker. Tactically, because they can, of course, always deploy 100,000 men, as they did in Tehran, to control the capital and to crush the opposition if necessary. But in the longer run, strategically, of course, the regime will become more isolated, and they would lose the base of support they have among parts of the Iranian population. As far as the outside world is concerned, it's very bad news, because a military regime would mean a more provocative foreign policy, because they want to justify their own existence, the increase in their budget. For example, this year they are asking for 21% increase in their budget, and for that they would need to provoke conflicts. They claim that they can dominate Iraq and Afghanistan once the Americans have run away, and in that way, they are very active in both countries. They're active in Lebanon, they're active in Syria, in Sudan, and in the Persian Gulf.
But it's really hard to believe that the Iranian regime would get more aggressive with its neighbors. I mean, they've been very aggressive in trying to meddle in Iraq's democracy. You say, as you said, they've armed Hezbollah and others in the region. You're saying that these changes inside Iran could mean a more aggressive Iran outside the country.
Yes, if you see the history of the past 30 years of Khomeinism, this regime has become more and more hardliner. Many books and articles appear that, well, this is like other revolutions, it's thermidor, as in the French Revolution, and Iran is coming towards moderation, and 6 American presidents were fooled, by the idea of this regime becoming a moderate. There are some regimes that will not become moderate. They will stop only if they hit something hard. Therefore, I could say you ain't seen nothing yet. These people have a messianic madness that could plunge the whole region, indeed the whole world, into catastrophe.
What about the implications for their nuclear program, which of course the rest of the world has been, or most of the rest of the world has been trying to stop? The UN Nuclear Agency this week said that they fear that Iran may already be working on a nuclear warhead. Do you think that they're even more determined now to move ahead with that?
Yes, I think so, because they have increased the percentage of uranium enrichment from 3.5% to 20%. President Ahmadinejad says that centrifuges will rise to, number of centrifuges will rise to 50,000. When President Obama became president, there were 400 centrifuges working. Today there are 8,000, and Ahmadinejad is, of course, promising 50,000. So there is no doubt that the atomic program is going to be accelerated.
All right, do you think, that, and we don't have a lot of time left, but do you think that there's any hope for the economic sanctions, even tougher sanctions that the Obama administration is talking about, any hope for those stopping this development of the nuclear side?
Well, sanctions would help, because my main hope is from the uprising of the Iranian people inside Iran. If the two are combined, if Iranians are convinced that the democracies, especially the U.S., are not going to make a deal with this regime, it would help them accelerate the regime change, which is now becoming increasingly a policy of a majority of Iranians.
All right, Amir Taheri, thanks so much for being with us. We're going to watch this story carefully. We have to take one more break.